And we are live. What's going on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube Live? It is your man, Coach Rowe. Today is Tuesday, May, 14th? Yeah, 14th, Ari's birthday. Today is Tuesday, May 14th. I'd like to welcome you to the first row and the next session of the Men's Circle. We're going to jump straight into it, even though we're looking at a lamp in one of our screens. We're going to jump straight into it because Art is preoccupied at the moment. Congrats to him.
The end of the Blair Witch Project. Just
right. At least we ain't got to worry about getting motion sick. But tonight's topic on the Men's Circle is one that I've been thinking about, talking about for a while, and that topic is competition. I hit the wrong thing because my brain is everywhere right now. There we go. Competition. As always with the topics, I like for my guests to be able to kind of share what the topic means to them. So since Art is still in the middle of his conversation, Tim, introduce yourself and share a little bit about what this topic means to you on competition.
Tim Rushing, longtime fixture of the Men's Circle. I like to make the joke that I only have a memory that doesn't involve Billy at this point in my life. We go back that far. Competition, man. It's funny because competition is simultaneously one of the biggest drivers and motivators and simultaneously one of the most deflating things all at the same time. So competition is, and it's really tricky because you never really get to see, you never really play with the full deck. You only see what people show you. So you don't even really know what you're really competing with. But competition it's from the male point of view is what drives us. And sometimes that's in a healthy way and sometimes that's not. And men struggle their whole lives figuring out that balance.
True.
I am one of those men. So what competition means to me, it's that primal desire to be better than whoever's next to you. And we like to try to fancy ourselves as being being more than the animals in the animal kingdom, but that's where we share a lot of similarities. So to me, it's that primal need to be better than the next person. And so yeah, that's what it is for me.
All right. Art, I know you're in the middle of taking your stroll, but if you could introduce yourself and share what tonight's topic on competition means to you. You're on mute. We can't hear you. I don't know what that's about. Can you hear me? Okay, go out and come back in. Try going out and come back in.
Art's competing with that sound. Sound's winning right now.
I'm like, what the heck? And it's weird because we just were able to hear him a second ago. I'll give him like 20 seconds to come back in. 1001, 1010.
Yeah, if we were playing flag football, he'd be sacked by now.
Right.
Like
loss of yards on the play.
Yeah, I did the same thing to me when I first cast. Why I dropped out, I had to come back in because it wasn't recognizing my sound device, apparently.
That's strange. Yeah. He made me feel like I had accidentally muted the whole page or something. Well, while we wait for him to come back in, I'll kind of share a little bit about what it means to me. So this particular topic on competition, for me, when I was like thinking about having this session, I really started thinking about how kind of what you were saying, how competition like drives, how competition drives our success, but on the other end, how competition can be kind of like this enemy towards our success. Oh, what's going on, Casual? Welcome, man. But so on the other end, it kind of can actually destroy our success because we get so caught up in the comparative nature of welcome back, Art. The comparative nature of competition that we almost stifle our own growth or stifle our own progress. I don't even want to say growth. We stifle our own progress because we're so busy looking at what everybody else is doing. And I've had this happen in many different areas in life. But we're so busy looking at what everybody else is doing that we don't put the focus on the right actions or the right efforts. And as a result, we stifle or we kind of sometimes decimate our own success. Art, we should be able to hear you now. It looks like we should be able to hear you now.
Yeah, hopefully it's
There we
wild
go.
out in Orlando, bro.
Yeah, go ahead and introduce yourself and what competition means to you.
Well, Art Diaz, what is it? Longtime fan, big time fan of my friend Billy Rowe and good friend with Mr. Tim here. I think we've kind of shaken some trees and kind of gone through some emotional roughness and we've here we are continuing on some good friendships. Um, my interpretation and understanding of competition is it's just basically the challenging of someone else, the competing with somebody, and even that competing with your very self of being a better person of tomorrow. Unfortunately, there's times where I've done it where I've kind of beaten myself a little too hard over the stupidest things and not beat myself up enough for the real serious things. You know what I mean? Um, it can be an addiction, as the McDonald's Coca-Cola. You know what I mean? But but it's something that I think can be a healthy thing.
Yeah, no, I feel like that's where we're all at when it comes to competition. And I'm going to completely disrupt this conversation from that to the space of when competition with yourself is healthy, competition with others is healthy when you're in the right healthy space. But my very, very first question is how much does the ego impact our competitive nature, and how much can that ego really contaminate the competitive process in what I believe the competitive process was designed to accomplish? That's my
Yeah.
very first question.
Ooh. Well, I think I'll take this from Tim because he looks a little like if he's still thinking or he's getting mad at somebody out there. But my thing on ego, man, that's one ugly monster. It can ruin a lot of stuff. It can turn from a friendly competition to just a hateful one, and sadly, that people that don't understand or can understand you as the person, as to know you as a real person, can man, they can really trip out on people's ego. There's times that I don't know if you, Billy, in person before you met me, as soon as you met me, you're like, man, this guy he's kind of cocky, he's kind of a dick. But no, after you got to know me, it's like, oh, he's a pretty cool dude, freaking perverted, but he's pretty cool, and it's like I personally don't think that I'm cocky or have a big ego or stroke my ego, but it's just some people that's how they take it. But to impact like my competitive nature to people, it's like it 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 makes it challenging. You know what I mean? Because I'm just trying to be your friend, but it's just unfortunately that's just my default. You know what I mean? My ego's kind of up there.
Right. Well, that's funny because I remember when the three of us were actually all together when we went paintballing, and when after we went paintballing, I guess you maybe had a conversation with Chastity, and you were telling her like, "I see why you married him." Like, and in paintball, I am extremely competitive. Like, it's it's almost to my own detriment. Like, I will jump and fall on a rock and just be like, "It's gonna have to be what it is," because I'm trying
Yeah,
to win. But I remember when we were paintballing, I remember the first game we played, we got decimated. Like,
hell yeah! You were
I
the
didn't
only
even
one that
know the
lasted.
team. I didn't know I was the last person alive on the team. That's how fast we got decimated. And
Yeah,
then I remember we played the second round and we got decimated again. And in that moment, that competitive moment, there was some ego there, right? There was some ego like, yo, I didn't come out here to get my ass whooped by a bunch of kids. Like, there's that. But on the other hand, there's like, I remember having this moment where I said to myself, I am not going to lose another
yeah,
game. I didn't care whose team I was on. I didn't care if it was me versus everybody. I was like, I am not losing another game.
Oh,
And
we know. You sold us out to the other team.
hey, no, you went to the other team first.
By
Yeah,
who?
Art. Never forget,
By
Art. You
who?
switched teams to 0-2.
No,
You
no.
switched teams, Art.
Who sent me? Who sent me?
Yourself. They asked for volunteers. I didn't
Yeah, you
volunteer
said,
you.
yeah, I'll go.
They asked for volunteers. I was
Hey,
like, I ain't
after that
going.
0-2,
Hey,
me and Ro, we both didn't die the rest of the
Yeah.
night.
apology accepted. I got you.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So it's like for me in that moment, it was like my ego helped me set up a competitive streak that was like losing is not an option. So whatever you got to do to win, you're gonna have to do that because losing is not it, right? And it didn't matter because even when I switched over to the team you were on, that team still won. And it wasn't. No, let's be realistic. I can't win a paintball game by myself.
Yeah.
But that competitive nature and that ego in that moment was like, I ain't losing again.
Yeah.
And I didn't lose again. But sometimes we'll take that competitive nature and we'll create like these never again statements and things that are like unhealthy. I'm never going to let Tim outdo me again. I'm never going to let Mark outdo me again, right? Then that's when your ego begins to impact your competitive nature to where you're not even necessarily doing the things that you want to do as an individual. You're too busy trying to outdo somebody else who's not even really necessarily concerned about what your life goals are. I actually had a boss at one point who was uncomfortable with the fact that I feel like that I was a bright employee. Like I was a person who was willing to grow. I brought some great skills to our department. And I remember at one point we were having a conversation and it was almost like in his mind, he was like, well, you can never go beyond me because you can't take my place because where am I going to go? Right. Yeah. And I remember having this conversation with him and I was just like, hey, look, if you're comfortable in your position, keep your position. I'll go around you. Like, I don't have to land on your position. I can land on a position beyond your position if you want to stay where you're at. But I'm not going to allow you to be this faux ceiling to keep me from moving up in my career. And in that, it was almost like he felt, I guess maybe a little offended that I would say something so directly. But I'm like, in my mind, you are not the goal for me. You're not the finish line for me. And if where you're at in your life is the finish line for you, great. But if where you're at is the finish line for you, that don't make that the finish line for me. And I feel like when we deal with our ego, when our ego gets in contact with that competitive nature, now it's like, I got to come for your position just to show you that I can do what you can do. When overall, that's not where I'm trying to land at. And now I'm competing to get into a space that I could have went around and saved myself time and continue to grow. And that's what I inevitably ended up doing. So when I think about how much ego impacts our competitive nature, it's significant. Like, I remember my oldest son came in from kindergarten one day and he was like, Dad, today I found out it doesn't matter whether you win or lose. And I was like, hold up. hold up. I said, let's be clear, son. Yeah. Nobody starts anything hoping to lose. Nobody. No. I understand, you don't want to be a poor sport. I understand all those things. But at the end of the day, we start everything and we want to win. Period, point blank. We want to win. Now, it's not by any means necessary that we want to win, right? But within our own character and within our own values and integrity system, we want to win. And we're going to stick with the confines of that in order to get that win. And so ego, it's interesting how quickly your ego can pull you out of that value-based system and out of that integrity and say, well, I'm just in it to win it. You could think of probably how many people have created Ponzi schemes, right? And just out of their little Ponzi schemes, they probably started off with wanting to do good, and then they got a little bit of money, and then that ego says, man, you need to be a baller, shot caller, 20-inch Rams on the Impala, right? So you get to that space, and now all of a sudden, what you started out for something that was for good is now completely compromised because of your ego. We lost Art again. I don't know if it's because he's in the hospital. But Tim, what are your thoughts on that? How much does ego impact our competitive nature?
So I have a theory on ego as far as how I view ego. To me, there's inner ego and there's outer ego. Inner ego to me is you holding yourself accountable when you're not portraying yourself the best way, or you're not standing out in a way you feel you deserve to stand out. You get passed up on that promotion. You feel you were better for the job. If you got a healthy inner ego, instead of saying the world's against me, you'll say, okay, what do I got to do to be better? And that competitive nature can drive you in a good way. And that's your inner ego. When your ego starts getting outwardly and outer, a lot of times that's ego. It's just insecurity in disguise. And you're trying to, maybe if I speak it loud enough, others will believe it. And if others believe it, maybe I'll start believing it. And it's kind of, I think you see the person that barking loudest is probably not the one that ever bid anything, you know?
Right.
So it's a matter of learning how to gauge those two egos, because we both got both. And when you start seeing yourself being outwardly like, look at me, you got to examine what's your insecurity. What's the root of that? What am I really feeling? You know? So that's what, like, and if you're, the healthy inner ego could be really, really important to competition and your success in it. It's funny you mentioned about the person that felt threatened by your success. That's how you could tell an insecure person. That was his insecure ego, his outer ego stepping out, because he was voicing what he was insecure about. If you're secure and you know what you can do, you're not worried about anybody taking a job, because you're like, find somebody better. Right. I'll wait, you know? And if you find somebody better, then hey, tip my hat.
Congrats.
And you know what? Maybe I can learn something from this person. You know what I mean?
Right.
But the truly confident don't get caught up in that. But confidence isn't constant and universal. Because you're confident in one thing, don't mean you're confident in another. So we all struggle with our bits of insecurity, and it's what phase is it? Is it appearance? Is it career? Is it personality or whatever? We all have this thing, and it's funny because it's when does competition stop and comparison begin? And learning how to, like, okay, I'm comparing, because it's so wild, man. Not to go way off topic, right? But I had a little bit of not a big argument, but just kind of like I was irritated at my wife last night. And the reason I was irritated is because we had dinner and me and two of the kids went on a walk. And I asked her if she wanted to go on a walk, and she was like, no, and she didn't go. And in my head, the tunnel that I took to the thought process that I had, I was like, wait a minute, I'm trying to get fit. I love my life. I'm trying to extend it. Do you not like your life? Are you waiting for it to end? You know, you're just like going to be not active. Like, you don't care. Like, that's where my mind went. And we do that with people sometimes. We'll see somebody and everybody posts the highlights. Nobody posts the lowlights. So we'll see somebody and we're like, oh, they got the perfect existence, and you're competing with somebody's greatest hits. That's not really a fair fight. And then, 2 weeks later, they're divorcing. Oh, wow. They just look so happy. 7 days ago, I was over here saying I got to step my game up from the gift he just bought her. But, he bought her a gift because he was cheating on her and he felt bad. Oh, that's what it really was.
Right.
And I'm over here, so it's funny. Like, the more I when I coach people at work, I tell them, hey, comparison is a thief of joy. That's a real thing. Don't compete with anybody else. Compete with your yesterday and just get better than where you were yesterday. Put those horse blinders on and run your race, man. I know there's a lot of cliches right there, but there's a lot of truth in that. Because if you dream up stories of somebody and you're competing with a myth, how could you ever compete with a myth?
Right.
So that's where I land on it.
Is fairy tale.
Knowing the difference between the inner and the outer ego, or the healthy or unhealthy ego, and knowing that outer ego is just insecurity in disguise, man. And you notice like it's braggadocious, or it's incredibly sensitive, whiny, like when someone doesn't get their way. So that's my thoughts on how it impacts competition. If you buy in to your own self-pity and loathing and ego, it could stifle you to where you're not self-examining and getting better. And then you keep going for these same roles and wondering why you keep getting passed up. And it's never because you never took accountability and you never took inventory of what you needed to improve. So you keep doing the same thing over and over again, expecting someone just to give you something.
Right.
So that's how it impacts competition to me.
Fair enough. Art, you have anything else to add?
No, not so much. Just it's just other than that, it can be a real doozy, man, when you get into that competitive nature and you just can't control yourself, because at the end of the day, just like you said, like you're doing things because of guilt, or you're doing things because like you're angry with yourself, or it takes away that joy, like Tim said. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, do it for your better, but when you start comparing or trying to involve others, it can get a little crazy. If it's friendly, like how you guys ambushed me, on a paint gun, yeah, okay, that's cool. You know what I mean? But now look at you guys apologizing. It's all good. You know what I mean? It's
I know
fun.
it's wild, right? No, yeah, I agree with you though. It's like, once it starts to, I'm going to use this word, once it begins to sour, it's like no good will come from it. No good whatsoever will come from it. And Tim, you're one of the things you said about kind of seeing somebody's highlights. That's where my next question was kind of headed, was really how has social media corrupted what we perceive as competition, right? Because I agree with you, Tim. People are showing a bunch of stuff that they're doing and living it up. And I did this and I did that and all these wonderful things. But they're not showing that their mortgage is, 3 months behind. They're not showing that their car got repossessed. I mean, I had my car repossessed one time. I came outside, I was like, yo, where's my car at? Like, it was like, yo, you ain't paid us. And so we took it back. And then I had to spend even more money to get it back. So, it's always interesting to me when I see people on social media, and especially if it's people that I know, and I'm like, you ain't got it like that. So why are you trying to try to project that you have it like that? But in your guys' opinion, how has social media corrupted competition? And I'm gonna just say my part. I don't think that it's corrupt, and I use the word corrupted because I don't think that social media has made competitions something that has evolved for the better.
I'll go first this time. What social media has done is it's given people that need constant validation a resource to get it and seek it. And it has corrupted a lot of people. It has corrupted a lot of people to make poor decisions because, again, nobody's really authentic on social media. Nobody posts their lowlights, like you said. Like nobody, like I ain't seen nobody post a video of their car getting that dude from Lizard Lick Towing with the mullet coming out and getting their vehicle. I ain't seen one of those videos yet. You know what I mean?
Right.
So nobody ever wants to admit where they're deficient in something. So it's never authentic. Like you'll see people, an example of that. Oh, I'm gonna live my best life. He's doing me dirty. I deserve better than this. And then you see all in the comments, all this reassurance this person gets. Yeah, leave him, girl. You can do so much better. Da, 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 da. Seeing that shit over and over and over again, but not one question like, why do you think you deserve better? Why do you think you deserve better than what you get?
Right.
What do you ever know? Like the women, again, I feel like I get on women's helmet a little bit when I get on here, but a lot of times women in general will say, what does he bring to the table? Okay, well, what does she bring to the table? What are you bringing to the table that you feel you deserve a better meal? So I think that's where it gets corrupted is people get this false sense of advice and they feel like they get this uh, false sense of self-righteousness a lot of times. Like you see a lot of virtue seeking signaling on there. Look at what such a good person that I am. Like some of the most appalling videos I watch or I've seen is when somebody records themselves doing something for some homeless person. It's like, why are you doing that? Like it's so transparent that you need people to think that you're a good person. When a real good person don't even think about capturing that moment. They just think about helping the person. So it's really augmented our reality. This is bigger than a social media type thing. Social media is really, it's kind of like the virus that's messing up our actual reality. Because we're like, you seeing people don't look the same. They're filtered. Pictures are all filtered and edited. And then not saying that you got, and then they say, oh, you shouldn't body shame. Well, you knew what the standard was because you altered to look like the standard. And then I'm supposed to accept you as you are. And then it's a lot. It's so, we've gotten to such a bad place with that it's beyond corrupting social media. It's corrupting society. And therefore, it's corrupting competition in a major way. Because again, like we talked about the highlights, nobody's posting their struggles of their turn downs.
Right.
Oh, I didn't get that. You never see anybody post, hey, I'm have a big interview today. Please wish me luck. And then they follow up is, hey, I didn't get the job. And nobody says that. They just say when they got the job, and you never hear nothing if they didn't. You didn't even know they were going for it. You get what I mean?
Right.
Because they don't want that. They don't want to relive the not getting it if they don't get it because their messages are going to pile up or whatever. So it completely augments the competition. And then you're thinking you're competing with, Usain Bolt because all you see is the highlights. In the reality, this person, they're a dumpster fire. They have none of their stuff together. And that's the kind of the scary part when you get around really insecure people is they know how to appear like they're confident. So it's really hard to tell the difference sometimes. So yeah, that's how you're just piggyback off where I left off. Social media has corrupted competition just like it's corrupted everything else. Is there good things that have come from it and can come from it? Yes. But unfortunately in our society, just like social media is a microcosm of it, it seems like lately the negative outweighs the positive pretty significantly.
No, I'm with that. Art, what you got?
Well, to me, yeah, Tim's pretty much hit a lot of that on the head, right? And to me, it's just it creates a false narrative and it brings out the laziness in a lot of people because everyone wants to do that. I'm recording. I forgot what the title is, but they want to be their own person. They want to record things and that's how they want to make their money. That they forget, hey. Your kitchen sink is leaking. When are you gonna get that fixed? Hey, your mother that's like 80 years old needs attention. When are you gonna go give it to her? Your children are dipping in drugs and getting plowed like our farmers' land. They need some attention. You know what I mean? They kind of lose themselves in that publicity, but they forget the real important things. My stepson for a little bit, and this brings a little bit of the fight amongst the family. You know what I mean, amongst my spouse and I. That it's like, when are you gonna get your son off of that podcasting stuff and teach him the good things, teach him how to wash dishes. Oh, he knows how to wash dishes. Okay, well, I don't see him washing dishes. Well, because you're never here. Which, yeah, I'm not here. I'm working. I'm doing my thing. But when I get here, it's the only things I notice
dishes.
Yeah, dishes. You know what I mean? And she's like, the wife's like, oh, well, I wash them at night before we all go to bed. Okay, you know what I mean? But I see a lot of content he's loading. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
What if something happens to you? Who's going to take care of this dude?
And those are key topics that I'm just like, hey, this guy's over here talking about being a man, but it's like I'm trying to teach him, but he handicaps himself. So how can I teach him? You know,
Right.
how can I go from that ugly ogre man to something different that he'll understand? Not until he gets into that shit where, oh, I'm sorry, into that situation where he's like, dang, I should have listened. You know,
Yeah. Well,
and
and
I kind of do fall back on my own past where it's like, dang, dad, thanks. You know what I mean? Thanks for slapping me across the mouth, and thanks for pulling my head out of my ass, because now I again, my kitchen sink floods and I know what to do. You know what I mean? I don't need to call somebody.
right. Right.
And
And
when,
you know, it's interesting because we live in this society where technology is so instantaneous now. And it's funny because I put a post up earlier on Facebook about like having to go to a dictionary to look up words, right? And how I had to like traverse through multiple words to find the word that I was looking for. And in that, now I just go to Google and type the word that I'm looking for the definition of, and it gives me the definition instantaneously. I lose that ability to traverse other words and expand my mind. And in competition, it's almost like for me with social media and competition, it has created this um, deep rooted desire to want to simply be a content provider, right? I just want to provide content, a content creator, not provider. I want to be a content creator. I want to be a content creator. I want to be a content creator. And because the appearance, going back to what Tim says, the appearance of what you can do or make if you're a content provider or creator is so alluring. It's like trying to get to the NBA, right? Like if I could be an NBA basketball player, shit, yeah, I'll take $400,000 a year for my rookie contract, no problem, right? And so that allure to, honestly, I don't even want to just say to the younger generation. It's even some of the older generation that have that are, you know, the song of the sirens, Into the Rocks, with the whole content creation thing. That allure makes it to where learning how to wash dishes, having a 9 to 5, oh, that's for suckers, right? And the one thing that I do love about competition, this is the one thing I love about it, is no matter how fast you get to where you want to be, if you do not remain competitive, you will be humbled and removed from that position. And what I am learning is, as you see these people who are content creators create their content, maybe they become a millionaire because they create great content. At some point, when people decide, you're boring now, I don't want to watch you anymore, when that bottom falls out because they've just stayed consistent with what their content was, but weren't competing to keep their content relevant, all of a sudden, all that money that you had that was fast, now you're in the space of social media trying to make it seem like, oh yeah, I still got this Ferrari. Now you rented that Ferrari to make it seem like you still had a Ferrari, but your funds really are struggling right now. You're really in the struggle right now, and you're doing everything you can to make it seem like you're still competitive, but competition will always weed out the fraudulent. It will always weed out the fraudulent. I don't care if it's bench pressing. Yeah, I can bench press 450. Well, when you get under 450 pounds, we're going to really find out if you can bench press 450 or if you need 2 spots to get that up off of you. So I love that about competition. And I'm almost like lightweight saddened that society, and I don't want to just say the younger generation, but society has allowed what we all, I feel like, instinctively know can't be, when they say the good, too good to be trues, we all instinctively know that everybody can't be making $1 million off of YouTube. Like everybody can't be doing that, because if everybody could be doing that, everybody would be doing that. And then the value of $1 million wouldn't be worth anything. Inflation would say, hey, we got too many millionaires. Now the cost of milk is $500 a gallon. Like, just is what it is. But I'm saddened that we minimize and downplay. I'm not saying you got to be in a 9 to 5. I'm not even saying you can't have a 9 to 5 and a side hustle, but we downplay just people who are just doing what works for them. You know what I mean? Like, if me working at McDonald's gets me what I want out of life and I'm relatively happy and I'm not struggling, let me be. McDonald's it is. So I think that's interesting. Tim, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I was just thinking about it when you said it, because I was watching my son's soccer practice, kind of out my purview, and I think it's kind of like our generation, maybe the generation a little bit ahead of us. It's kind of our fault of how we did this. Everybody gets a consolation prize. There's, like you said, winning, or it doesn't matter if you win or lose. All those were lies people tell themselves because they remember when they were little how it felt to lose. But what they don't remember is how the loss pushed them.
Wait, hold on. What they don't remember is how what?
It's how the loss pushed them.
Oh, your wind is it windy where you're at?
Yeah, the wind just kicked up. Can you hear me a little bit better now? How about now?
There, that's way better.
All right. It just got breezy for no reason. But the loss pushes you, and it makes you work harder. But they don't remember that. They just remember the outcomes, and that's the things I try to preach to my kids and to the people I supervise is stop getting caught up in the end result. Work on the process. If you got your process down, and you have the right behaviors, the results will follow. But that's where this came from, and it's losing or winning isn't. It doesn't. It does matter if you win or lose. There's people that win, and it's the worst thing that could ever happen to them because then they rest on their laurels. And there's some people, the best thing that ever happened to them is that they lost because it pushed them. So, in a sense, that's kind of right. But if you don't have the perspective to get better from a loss, or like you said, maintain your place as a winner and continue to work hard, then it doesn't matter another way because you're lost regardless.
Right.
So that's where that messaging gets mixed up and it gets lazy and it gets presented as, oh, it doesn't really, just go out there and play, or just go out there and do this. Oh, it doesn't matter. Yeah, it does. The people that say losing doesn't matter are losers.
Right.
You don't see winners saying, man, you know what, I wish I'd have lost a little bit more.
Yeah, nah, I'm straight.
Yeah,
but you know what I will say is you're right in that part, because when I play like sports and stuff, I tell people, like, if I blow a team out, I don't really learn anything in that. We just blew the team out, right? I didn't figure out a different way to steal the ball or a different way to, maneuver my chess piece on the chessboard. I just blew them out. But when I'm like back against the wall and it's a hard fought win or I lose, oh yeah. I mean, we when Tim and I played Call of Duty, it's like, wait, how did we lose that? I should have went this way when the gas. Or
we learn from the loss.
You're learning.
And it's resulted in a lot of wins.
Right, which me cracking up. I'm like, dang, we got a lot of Call of Duty wins. But it's because we're taking all the losses. We have clearly more losses than we have wins, right? But even in the more losses that we have than wins, we're learning different ways to approach the game to get more wins. Not that I think we'll ever overtake our losses by any stretch of the imagination, but it's interesting to me that a lot of people go into I'm just calling it what it is. They go into pout mode because they lost, right? Man, okay, you missed that layup. Great. Here, what did you do wrong to miss the layup? Now, what can you do right the next time you're in that position to make that layup? I help right now with a small basketball team. And in that, I'm like, I'm not the world's best basketball player by any means, but I'm able to learn things like, Tim and I used to play in elementary school on a basketball team. And it'd be like, get your hands up, do this, do that, move your feet, this, and all those things, regardless if I'm good at them or not, I can see if somebody's doing them and coach to the fact that, hey, you that person went by you because you tried to reach and get the ball, but you didn't move your feet. So once you reached and missed, you were no longer relevant to that play. But I feel like, social media makes you feel as if competition is this space where you are instantly skilled. Like, I see these little kids, man, playing basketball at like top levels. I watched this one video where these 11-year-olds were playing adults and won the game. They had one adult on their team and they won the game. But they had jump shots, they had handling, they had passing, they had everything. But it's like you're just seeing that end result. And so you forget that they were dribbling a ball at 2 years old and they were sucky at it. You forget that they slept with a ball in their crib. You forget the things that they were doing to get to the point to where when they're 11, they're competitive against adults. And social media, unfortunately, makes the boringness of the process, right, of any kind of success that you're trying to achieve. There's a process that's sometimes boring and repetitive. It makes the boringness of the process not cool. Because nobody goes and says, hey, yo, watch this content where I dribble this ball 1,000 times with my left hand. Nobody's making that content. They're like, oh, crossover hezzy to the left hand layup, because that's exciting. But what's not exciting is the countless hours you spend working to develop that skill set. And unfortunately, in the world of competition, it will cause you to be a victim if you feel like everybody else is getting these X-Men mutant abilities and you have to work for yours, right? Like, damn, you can go invisible? I got work to do that. It makes it feel like life is unfair. And the reality is life is not unfair. Work ethic is a very strong indicator of what will be considered fair for you and what will be considered unfair. So I'm gonna step off my high horse because
really, you just said probably the only 4-letter word in my household is fair. I hate when people say fair. Ain't nothing fair in life. Nothing. There's no such thing as fair. Don't tell me that it isn't fair, because it's funny how you said like the poutiness, right? Is if you fall into that victimhood, for one, it doesn't make any sense. Look at all the victims you see around. Look at all the people that fall into it. Nobody's clamoring to come save grown men. Right. You better not be a man as a victim. Ain't nobody coming to see that. That one lady back in the day cut her man's penis off, and it was a funny joke everybody leaned into. You know what I mean? Lorena, this dude's like, I just got my stuff cut off, and everybody, I'm a joke now, and that happened to me. I got attacked. You know what I mean? So if you want to be a victim, for all those men that are listening, listen, don't be a victim. Be better. Figure out what's causing it. The deck isn't stacked against you, man. It isn't. And if the deck's stacked against you, it's because you gave them the cards to do it.
Right.
Fix yourself.
You spent all your aces early in the game. That's on you.
Right. Or you're posting pictures in your Mercedes C-Class and you live in the hood.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
You got a roach in the back seat in a child seat. But but you want to look good,
right.
But that's the, and the older you get, man, it's funny how life works. It's like you get wisdom as you get older, and just when you know enough, you're like not old, you're not young enough in physicality to do anything with it. But like, as a man, if you could get a woman's attention by what you got, you don't want her. You don't want her. But young guys, they don't get that.
Right. They're like, oh, I got money pictures on my bed. Oh, girl, he got money. My wife will tell you when we got together, there was no need for you to know how much money I made. It was like, I make enough money to take care of myself and for us to be on this coffee date.
You could also spin the competition like in a couples thing, man. Like, man, it cracks me up. Like, nice enough for me to have a wife that doesn't fall into that, but she kind of falls into rooting for a couple, which I think is the stupidest thing that there is.
Rooting for
But
what?
rooting for like a couple, like a celebrity couple, like they start dating and they're like, oh, they're so cute together. I hope they make it. Why? You don't know these damn people. You don't know what they're really like. It's so dumb. And then you see people say, oh, that's relationship goals. You don't think that these are skilled people that know what it's like to be in front of a camera and know how to manipulate you into thinking one way about them?
Right.
And then you see
Marketing.
them break up and you're like, oh, I did. Oh, no, he really did sleep with a different woman in each city on his tour. Oh, no way. Like, what? It's just, but that creates unhealthy. Like, why don't you shower me with stuff like Travis Scott does, whatever Kardashian? And it's like, well, you know, Travis Scott has like 4 baby mamas probably while with her.
Right.
Do you want that too? Like, what? It's just, it creates like a weird competition in that. But it's funny. My wife would be like, man, you're so cynical. It's like, I'm not cynical. I don't get invested in people I don't know. Why
Right.
do I care if they make it? Maybe it's not good for them to be together. Maybe what we're seeing is only the highlights. You ever think
Right.
about that?
I don't know them, so I don't know.
Right. I don't know if one of them's being treated like crap and needs to get away. So why am I going to root for them to be locked into that for eternity? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah,
No.
we can move on. I'm dwelling. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. My wife and I, we had that conversation when we first were, like, early when we were dating. She used to watch Derek Jackson, and he'd be like, Team Jackson, what's happening? And I'd be like, that dude is lying, babe. Like, he's lying. I said, here's how I can tell a person is lying. And it kind of goes along the lines of what you said last session, Tim. You were saying how, like, am I an intelligent person? If I'm intelligent, how can I be wrong every time, right? And anytime a person, especially in front of like a public audience, is like, yeah, us men are wrong. Every time we're wrong, like every time. Not some of the time, not most of the time. Every time we are wrong. I was like, he's pandering to his audience. You need to get a man that treats you this way, and if he doesn't treat you this way, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, I'm sleeping with other chicks on the side for my wife. Like, that, I wish you would treat me like Derek Jackson. Oh, really? Right? I mean, okay, if that's what you want. But when you find out that he's a fraud, even though I already know he's a fraud, and it's not that everybody who says these things is a fraud, it's just that anytime you are too skewed to one side or the other, you're pandering to the audience. You're not making using critical thinking skills to come to your conclusions at all times. And so it's like, you're right. We root for these people. We root for highlights. But the reality is that nobody's rooting for the underdog in relationships, at least. It's not like, oh, only can afford ramen and grilled cheese sandwich, relationship goals. Nobody's rooting for that, right? They're like, no, he took me and I got filet mignon and lobster and crab and shrimp and, like, for me, for my funds, that's not something that's sustainable. So since it's not sustainable for me, I'm not going, like, don't get me wrong. You and I we went to an amazing steakhouse. That food was bomb, right? And that is right. That was a treat, but that is not my lifestyle. Like, I don't mind spending money on good food every once in a while, but every night, every day, every week, absolutely not. Not something I can do. But I agree with you, Tim. There's a lot of rooting for highlights that are not really the reality of the situation.
But they don't even root for the people that they know. That's the bizarre part.
For me too.
You know what I mean? Like, they're willing to spend all this money on Kylie Jenner's makeup or whatever, but if their friend starts a business, they want a discount. It's so weird, man. And this is a person, you know, this person, you're invested in them. But it's funny you said that about the Team Jackson. My wife showed me that video. The first thing I told her, I was like, he's screwing at least one of his followers. I'm certain of it. Because all it takes is one of these thirsty women in there. Oh, I wish I could get a man like you. And he panders to that, like he panders to everything else. And next thing you know, he's taking flights. I got a business trip.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Sure you do. Sure you got some
Sign this
business.
paper. I'll get you there.
Uh-huh. NDA. Non-disclosure agreement for those who are not familiar. Let's move on to the next question. Next question I have here, it's easy to talk about the ego corrupting. It's easy to talk about social media corruption, but really for us as men, especially on the men's circle, I want to always try to provide some type of solutions or some type of advice, some of the tools that we may use in our own personal lives. What are some of the healthy ways you can keep your competitive nature in balance? So you kind of keep that competitive edge. You're still competing but in a healthy way to where you're not succumbing to your ego. You're not succumbing to social media highlights.
Well, me, I would say I would lean more along the lines of keeping it healthy would be how much time is this going to take me away from my wife? How much time is this going to take me away from my daughters, my kids? How much is this going to take me away from, in a sense, my checkbook, right? Because if I'm competing to weightlifting and stuff like that and I'm not earning a living off of it, then I need to make sure that my job is taken care of, my hours are being hit, and my family's taken care of, But of course, if I'm being, I'm getting paid to work out and do all this weightlifting and bodybuilding, then yeah, balls to the walls. But even at that, I'm 41 years old. I need to start kind of laying back a little bit. You know what I mean? Because it's gonna hurt tomorrow.
Right. No, I love that. The kind of like, what is the cost? Well, that was my first analytical role, was cost analysis. Like, hey, this is what we're trying to, this is the effort or the outcome we're trying to achieve. Here's what we're willing to spend on that. And is that going to be enough to get us what we want? Or is that not going to be enough to get us what we want? And what we want is not something that we can afford, right? But yeah, I love that you bring in the, what is it taking me away from? Like, because to compete, even if you're just competing on a physical level, right? It's not a zero energy event. Like, even if I'm just competing to box, I'm burning calories and my muscles are getting fatigued along the way. If I'm competing for job interviews, hey, it's not just this, oh, well, I'm just going and tell them what I tell them and then, walk away from there. No, you got to put on your best, your best click clacks. You got to put your best foot forward. You got to be able to articulate your experience. It's not this zero energy, zero effort experience. So I love the fact that you bring cost into that healthy component of your competitive nature. Tim, what you got?
It's funny. I was going to say something. I was going to say opportunity cost, and opportunity cost is the cost is the time. Cost is everything. It's your time, your money, your resources, and comparing that to once you know what the cost is, does that impact your desire? Can you afford it, and do you care enough about it, right? Because like if I go out there and play basketball and run a full court game right now, I'll probably think, like, man, I want to be better because I want to come out here and school some people. But in order to get to that level, is it worth me devoting the time, the energy, and resources to be better in a pickup game? You know what I mean? So you have to examine what's the cost? What's the cost of that? And it's funny because the way I maintain my balance is this is gonna be near and dear to Art, who we might have just lost or we might be off camera. Is one thing that I learned in the military was an after action review, right?
Mm-hmm.
So once an outcome has already happened, let's do an autopsy on it. Let's look and see, okay, what happened, why it happened, what could be done about it, and learning how to really be honest with yourself, and more importantly, learn how to forgive yourself and not say it's my fault. Sometimes somebody was just was better, or they were just a better fit, because you don't have access to that. Like, you could say, hey, I felt my interview went great. You weren't sitting on the other interview. You don't know how that one went. And it might have been a very, very, very close call. And some other obscure thing that you can't change affected that. It could be, oh, we like them both so much, so evenly, but this person's been in the current role for 12 years. This person's been in it for 5. Let's go with the experience if we like them both the same. And you can't control the level of experience you got,
Right.
So then you learn and so that's the thing is, it maintains its health when you're able to look at it and say, okay, is there anything I could have done that could have changed this outcome, and then learn the lesson to apply it going forward. Anything beyond that is a fool's errand. You're competing with ghosts because you don't even know. You don't know what the
Right.
real things are.
You
So-
making up stuff.
Right, and then you're giving yourself that negative self-talk, and then that starts feeding in and building you insecurities. So that's how I maintain mine. I do an after-action review. Okay, what happened? How come I didn't? Why? What's the feedback that I'm getting? Okay, how do I improve that? And then you just work and honing that. And that's the stuff they don't post on social media, the grind of the improvement of that, you know? So that's how I maintain the healthy balance.
Okay, I like that. That after action review, it's really just a moment of reflection, right?
Yep.
It's to reflect on, okay, you know, sometimes I'm going to even include honesty in that. Sometimes like, yo, did I do my best? Nah, not really. Like when I look at fire your job, hire your passion, right? I was looking at the jobs that I got fired from. And it was like, yeah, it fucking made sense that I got fired, right? Because I wasn't doing my best. Like, that's not my best work. But when I'm doing my best work, I just recently last year got laid off. And I was doing some of my best work, right? Now all of a sudden I'm like, this isn't a reflection of me as an employee. This isn't a reflection of me as an analyst or me as a leader. This is a reflection of the fact that the price of our product has been slashed down here by 10%, and they can't afford to hold this level of staff. So when I'm looking for the improvement, it's like, keep doing what you were doing because that was
Right.
working for you, right? Not, oh, well, maybe I need to change how I do analytics over here or change how I do leadership over here. No, I'm going to still show up as I was showing up because that layoff had nothing to do with me. Now, there's been times where I've been laid off and I was like, yeah, I can see why you guys let me go, right? I wasn't the top performer. I was standoffish and probably sometimes had an attitude. And yeah, I would have let me go too in hindsight, right? Not happy that I'm being let go, but I would have let me go too in hindsight. And that's where you begin to improve yourself on that, like you said, that after action review. You begin to improve yourself as what type of person do I want to be? What kind of quality do I want to bring? And if I'm not bringing that quality, at what point do I say, maybe this isn't right for both of us, right?
That's where my growth started. Is I did an action hour review on my first marriage, and I was like, okay, where could I have been better? You know, this marriage really had in. We were two totally different people, but how could I be better for the next? If I ever do meet somebody that's worthy of that, how do I be better? And it made me address some things about recognizing some warning signs in myself of when what the root cause of some feelings are, or root cause of frustration, root cause of snapping, or whatever. And it made me look in the mirror. And I just think that society as a whole, we don't have a problem looking in a mirror, but we have a real problem seeing what's there. Some people see something that is not even the case. It's crazy because I tell that in my job, it's like, I'll give you like I supervise 20 people. I would say 6 of them are probably really top of the end, high performing people. About 10 of them are in the middle of the pack, and then 4 of them are kind of low performers. I find that I have to talk my high performers down from being so hard on themselves. And I have to show people that are lower performers, hey, look what you're putting out there. You know what I mean? I have to kind of show them the mirror of what they really look like, because they think they're not bad, but the top performers think they're not good. It's so weird. And but we have a problem with actually calibrating what we're seeing in the mirror. But like that, like I was really happy when you were going through that you didn't get caught up in that messaging, because you feel a certain type of way when you get let go, like your talents aren't being recognized. You know what I mean? It's almost like an athlete when they get cut from a team. It's like, oh, for real? You think you got somebody better than me?
Right.
But when you start thinking about it like a layoff situation like yours, it was you were the collateral damage of somebody else not doing their job right, and that sucks. But
Yeah.
that's the way it is. We don't want to admit this. We do. Our society is really a house of cards. One thing could get pulled and could take out a pillar. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I was really happy when you were going through that you didn't buy into that. You're like, no, I know my worth. I'm gonna grind and it worked out, like as it was always going to.
Right. Because at the end of the day, I'm a competitor and I'm gonna compete. Right. Like I'm gonna compete. I may not win every single game, but I'm gonna compete. Like you're not
And then
gonna get
your
subpar
track
performance.
record. Yeah, your track record was out there. Now, where this company laid you off, you see other people. Oh, wait a minute, he's off. He's available. Really? Like,
Right.
whoa. Let me reach out to him. And then it's crazy how I don't know if I seen this video a while back. It was about this guy who gave his daughter a old school car or whatever, and she took it to a used car shop. They tried to give her 1,000. She took it to a pawn shop. They tried to give her 3,000. She took it to a collector and he offered her $500,000. And he said, the car is the same car. Go where your value is recognized and appreciated. You know what I
Right.
mean? And we as a society, I think we have a hard time with that. We're on the extremes. It seems like in everything, politics, sports, and even how we view ourselves. We're either the worst thing that's out there, and we are way below where everybody else is, or we're too high on the high horse and we think we're God. So,
Yep.
rant over,
No,
man. I'm sorry.
no, you're good. One of the other things.
Hey,
Go ahead.
sorry, I need to apologize, but I'm gonna let you go because this little girl, we're at the hospital, and this little girl's getting a little mayhem over here.
All right, no problem. Good to see you, man. I'm glad you could join us, brother.
Always Art.
See you guys later.
Congrats again, man. Peace.
Uncle Willie.
Congrats, Art.
Hey, what's going on? Just randomly in the line. Hey, Uncle Billy. Hey, what's up? One of the things that when it comes to like the healthy ways of competitive nature, one of the things I've had to learn for myself in keeping that balance is knowing when to step out and say, you know what, I'm not willing to compete. And I think, you know, we have made being a quitter so villainized in society that it's like people are like, well, I don't want to quit. I don't want to give up. Well, shoot, people stay in horrible relationships because they don't want to be a quitter, right? People stay at horrible jobs because they don't want to be a quitter. And I remember when I quit my job in California and I was just like, I just quit. It was like I knew that I had reached my limit and the next space after my limit was hands-on. Like, and I didn't want to go to that level. So I had to make that decision and say, yeah, this might suck financially. Yeah, I know I'm not going to get unemployment because I'm quitting and all these different things. But at the end of the day, I have decided that I no longer want to compete in this particular arena. Doesn't mean that I'm not going to compete as an analyst. I'm happy to still compete as an analyst, and I feel like I've done extremely well since my departure from that company. But in that space, had I not chosen to quit, I can only assume that things would have been catastrophically worse for me in the aspect of, hey, so tell me about your last job. Why'd you leave there? Oh, they fired me. What'd you get fired for? I beat my boss up.
I gave my boss a people's elbow in the middle of the floor. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Right. Good luck on your
Oh yeah, welcome aboard. You're
Yeah.
just the energy we're looking for. Said no one ever.
Yeah, good luck on your job search. I don't think you're going to be a fit here. And so being able to have those moments where I'm strong enough, sound enough, smart enough to say, you know what, though I'm extremely competitive, though I want to win, though I'm not happy when I lose, I'm going to bow out of this competition because of who it would change me to be or who I would become in order to win it. Because if I'm going to compete, I'm competing to win. Who I would become in order to win is not worth the win itself.
That's the opportunity cost, man. What's the cost? What's it gonna cost you? And you're right. There's nothing wrong with bowing out when you're like, wait a minute, I don't like what this is gonna make me become. I don't like what the drain this is gonna be on me. And it's crazy because as a society, we've fallen into the trap of equating finances with success. And Noah, who just said, "Hi, Uncle Billy." It's funny. We were talking when we were putting this crazy bed together on Saturday, and we were riding, Home Depot, and it's like right before it closes. It's like 9:30. We got there, so we got attention, Home Depot shoppers. We are closing in 10 minutes. They were like, they seen us come in, and were like, "Hey, don't get comfortable," you know.
Right.
But on the way there, he says, "Hey, Dad," he's like, "How much better do you think your life would be if you won the lottery?" And I told him, I said, "Honestly, son, I don't know if it would be better." And he was shocked by that answer. And I was like, because I don't know what that would do. I really don't know. And I was like, but what I do know is what I got, billionaires would give me all their money for if they could have it. There's a lot of people out there, celebrities, millionaires, people that killed themselves because they're unhappy. I wouldn't trade places with anybody. So as far as where I feel the value is and wealth, I feel I do have wealth, son. And he was like, oh. And I was like, I got a great connection, great family. I got people in my life that are, they're real people. You go into a world where you have a lot of money, all of a sudden you're into a whole other galaxy of fake people that come into your life, and there's a price to that wealth. So yeah, so there's nothing wrong with quitting, and you'll see a lot of people that compete for a job they know they're gonna hate because they want to make that extra money, and they're willing to pay that cost because they're short-sighted and they don't understand the ripple effect that cause happens on their other existence, the rest of their existence, their relationship, their parenting. They look up 10 years later, they're unhappy and they're in the same place they were, so
right.
It's incredibly wise to know when to compete and when to not, which I think is where you're getting at with that, is when to compete and when to not compete. And to me, it's always, do I have the desire and do I have the opportunity cost to fulfill that desire? And if the answer to that is both yes, then I'm probably going to go for it. If the answer isn't a resounding yes on either one of them, I'm not going to touch it.
Right. At all. It's like, yeah, no, I'm straight. It's interesting. I was reading this article about a guy who won the lottery, and a lot of people came into his life asking to borrow money, and he would, give them 20,000, 30,000, 5,000, and he had all this money that he had given out, and eventually he had to hire a financial planner to manage his funds. And that person was like, yo, I'm going to go back and get all the money that these people owe you. I'm about to go back and get that money. And even that person then was so comfortable taking over his finances, ended up murdering the dude. And then assumed his identity and was like, no, he's still here. And he has me do this. He wants me to get this money out for that and all these different things. And dude was dead, gone and dead. And so we sometimes think that money will solve these problems that, if, don't get me wrong, if I had money, I probably wouldn't have to go to work in the morning. I'm like, hey, look, you guys got 2 weeks because I like you. But you're going to have to find somebody else to do this job. But but outside of that, that's just to free up my time to do things that I really want to do and not have to worry about the, 40 hours a week drain that comes with having a job. But we don't think about those other aspects. And this is another part of competition, right? Competition in the aspect of I'm jealous. We don't use that word with competition very often, but the word jealousy is a direct result of competition or a competitive nature. I am jealous that you won the lottery and I didn't win the lottery. And so now, because you have this amount of money that I don't have, this person again goes outside, takes their ego and says, I should have this money. It went from I'm going to help you get your money back to I should have this money. And you're standing in my way. So the competitive nature in me says I have to kill you in order to get this money. And that's where that ego comes in and causes you to go past the line of, look, I ain't trying to kill nobody because I ain't trying
I
to
can
go
make it look like he's still alive anyway. I could get away with it.
Right. Prison.
Yeah.
For life. Good luck.
For life.
Yeah.
For to ride around in a nice car and pose for some people for a few months, you traded your whole life for it. But that's that power, man. The old saying, keeping up with the Joneses, man. That all these sayings come from a place, man. And that's the funniest thing about growing up. And you're like, okay, someone just really simplified something very complex, and you start seeing it play out. You're like, oh, that's not just a saying. That's something that's a figment of life played out. It gets wild, man. But yeah,
it does. Well, I know you said you have to go in about 20 minutes, so I want to give you a chance to give your closing thoughts, and then I'm just going to jump into key takeaways. We'll just end it early tonight. I'm okay with that.
That's cool. That's cool.
I'm sure my wife is okay with that as well. So when it comes to this conversation on competition, for you, what are your closing thoughts that you want men to leave this conversation with?
Competition, like everything else in this world, is fine in moderation. If you're all competition, you're going to be miserable. If you have no competitive nature, you're probably going to be miserable. You're going to get what life gives you. And life isn't very charitable if you haven't been paying attention. You'll be like Oliver Twist, like, Mace, please, sir, can I have another? And life will be like, nah, you had enough, Oliver. So competitive is what is your lot in life. You control what you get and what you compete for. And you're the sum of all your choices. So choose wisely and know when to compete and when not to. Know when to hold them and know when to fold them. Like, know when it's going to cost you too much, and don't put yourself in those positions, man. And it does matter if you win and lose, but losing is at the end of the road. Losing is another step in the path to success if you use it right. So every loss is a lesson, and so is every win. But there's a lot of people that win that don't feel the need to work or learn from it. They just think, oh, I'm winning, and then they run into that person that's been working, and they get ran through. And they're like, man, how the hell this guy beat me? It's like, oh, yeah, because this guy's been working and competing with himself and making himself better every day. So you were just a hurdle in his race. He cleared you just like he cleared the other 10 before you. So you either get in the lab and work or get cleared again next go round.
Yeah, I've always said that work will always outdo talent. Like, you can be talented, gifted, natural, you could jump through the roof. But if that's all you do and you don't work, somebody's coming for you, and your time is limited. So, no, hey Noah, oh, he can't hear me.
He's looking for his phone. He's on a water break. Probably the last one.
Okay.
No, practice it ended.
Oh, practice ended. Sit down.
Where's your keys?
They're right here.
But for me, when I think about this topic, competition, I really think about how we as men sometimes compare ourselves in regards to success, right? Like, I'm successful, and so now how does my success measure up against Tim's successful? And it becomes this back and forth. And if you're with people who are growing, like, who understand that it's my responsibility to drive my growth in me, so I'm trying to outdo who I was yesterday, and then you have that friendly competition back and forth, like, hey man, we just got our 8th house, man, we're working on our 9th. Like, if that's that competitive nature that you have, I feel like that's healthy competitive nature. But if it's, okay, you got 5 houses, I'm gonna have 10 just to show you I can do twice as much as you, and now I'm filing bankruptcy, that's not healthy competition. That's, again, that keeping up and then outrunning. I don't think we talk about that aspect of competition, outrunning the Joneses. Like, not just keeping up with them. I got to take off and leave. I got to lap them. Oh, well, good luck with that, because the Joneses are barely keeping up with the Joneses themselves. So when you go and lap them, realize you about to have to start this whole race all over again.
You see it all the time, man. You see like these these couples, like they posting pictures like they're having the greatest time, and then they're getting divorced. Like, but because you never truly know what goes on, and that's why it's just so silly. Like, if you're doing it for you and it's true, then that's how to go about it. Don't. I just think it's we grew up. I'm fully understanding that me and you are two very different people than most people in the world. We give zero shits about any of that. If a woman were to say something about me and the clothes you're wearing, I don't know, I don't know. I'm used to dating a Balenciaga. I'm like, you looking at the wrong fucking guy. Then go find him. And a lot of times that turns into them wanting you more. Like, damn, he doesn't give a shit that I didn't want him. But we're we're kind of like, in some cases, abrasively authentic,
right.
and that's when people usually interact with us, they're like, yeah, I want to keep that person around, because what you see is what you get. I'll tell you the warts and all. I'll tell you the lowlights, and I'll tell you the highlights. But you just don't see that very often.
Right. Normally you just see, like you said, highlights. Oh, yeah, he's got it all together. He's always in the three-piece suit. Dude, I always laugh because I come online, and if I shave, I shave. If I don't, I don't. If I'm bald on the top, I'm bald. If I'm not, I'm not. None of that matters to me, because I'm not in the content creation space to compete and become a millionaire. I'm in the content creation space to leave a legacy. Like, it's very intentional what I'm doing on YouTube, to be able to say, hey, Paul Rowe is gone, but here's the stuff that he left behind. Here's the conversations that he was having. Dude, there's hundreds of hours of conversation that anybody who is interested can go in and pull up online. Like, to me, it doesn't have to be the sexy, like, oh, how do I set up my background and the mood lighting and all this? Is just my office. This is where I work at.
LED lights.
Right. This is where I play video games at. The only thing that I got over here is a studio light to make sure that I'm not dark. Other than that, I don't really care like that. But I think you're right. There's the level of authenticity that comes with people who are like you and I. And that authenticity is actually what allows us to shine in competition. Like, whether it's, like you said, interacting when we were single, and females being like, oh, well, I'm looking for somebody who could wine me and dine me. Well, keep looking. Good luck on your search. Oh, wait, what? Like, yeah, like, that ain't me. I don't know you. Like, when I was single, my thing in the club was like, buy you water. If we've had a dance, I'll buy you water. And if I enjoy your company, then I'll buy you a drink. But other than that, water. Hey, would you like to buy me a drink? No, that's not what I was thinking. So, no. Like, people are not used to that level of authenticity. And then they get it, and it's refreshing. And that is where I look at how I compete. I'm going to give you the purest version of who I am. Don't get me wrong. There's certain things that you may or may not know about me that you'll learn over time. I'm sure my wife feels that way right now. Like, God, I've learned so much. It feels like a lot. But at the same time, it's like, inevitably who I am when it comes to trying to grow, when it comes to trying to evolve, when it comes to trying to be a better human, those things are all intrinsically within who I am. And so regardless if I have shortcomings or if I'm missing the mark in certain areas, who I am intrinsically is a person who's about growth. And my wife knows that, and I know that about my wife. Doesn't mean we don't have our struggles. Doesn't mean there's times where I'm like, why the hell did I get married? Doesn't mean there's times where she's not like, why the hell did she get married, right? But at the end of the day, the reality is why we continue to work on our marriage is because of the fact that we understand we're both in it to win it and we're both in it to grow. So I'm all for that. But before you get going, let me jump here. As always, when we have a men's circle, I have key takeaways. I actually got quite a few takeaways in tonight's conversation. The very first takeaway, I believe it was something that you said. You said confidence is not constant or universal. It comes over, it ebbs and it flows. And what you were talking about, like how competition breeds confidence, right? And if we are not competing, if we're not, and I don't mean competing each other, if we're not competing with ourselves and trying to better ourselves, eventually, no matter how confident you were, like, yo, at one point you could have 6-pack abs, 26-inch biceps, a 50-inch chest, don't matter what it is, right? You can have that, but if you're not competing against yourself to either maintain or improve upon that, at some point you can still have those muscles, but the rest of your life is shit. And if that's the case, then what happens is your confidence begins to slide and decline. We see this all the time. We see it in men and women where they may be the most gorgeous or the most handsome people on the planet, but in their own minds, their confidence is so deteriorated that they're just like, I'm ugly. Nobody wants me. Who would want me? Like, I'm a beast. I'm a freak of nature. Like, that confidence is not constant if you are not constantly competing. That is literally the only thing that will sustain your confidence for an extended period of time. And it doesn't mean you won't have moments where you're not confident, but for an extended period of time is to be able to get in there and compete with yourself. And if you do compete with others, I feel like when you do win, especially when competing against others, whether it be in sports or anything else, that also improves upon your confidence because it shows you that you can win. Key takeaway number 2 is don't allow social media's augmentation of reality to corrupt your perspective of competition. Man, Tim, you said this multiple times tonight. Those highlights, they will have you thinking that you have the worst life on planet Earth and everybody else is winning. And the reality is that people are just showing their trophies in the trophy case, but they're not showing their wins and loss record, right? They're not showing how many losses they have under their belt. They're just showing the wins. And sometimes the wins that they're showing aren't even real wins. Like you said, to get a Mercedes-Benz and it's a C-class Mercedes-Benz, granted, if you wanted a Mercedes and that's what you could afford and that's what you got because it's what you wanted, great. But if you're getting it so you can try to say, yeah, I drive. What kind of car you drive? I drive a Mercedes. Me and my wife, we share a car. We have a Nissan Rogue. We share it. We only have one car in our household. I've heard multiple people, oh, you need to have your own car. No, I don't. No. For what?
And when that time comes, I'll get it, but I don't need
it. And I can tell you that time is not coming anytime soon for me. Because guess what? The times when I need a car and it's not here, I ride a bike. That's simple. And even if it's the weather's bad, then I get a lift. That's simple. But at no point am I like, man, I'm gonna catch a lift to the car dealership so I can, floss on them real quick on the gram and let them know that I got a new whip. Nope. Don't need to let them know that. I'm good. So don't allow social media's augmentation of reality to corrupt your perspective of competition.
I'll give an example of this before where that really hit me was I follow a page on Instagram where like old school basketball highlights, right? And there's this person who's probably like 20 years old that's going back and watching a lot of old basketball film from like the 90s. And he keeps posting these people and he's like, oh, that person was nice. And I'm like, that person wasn't even an all-star back then. And it clicked in me like anybody that's reached a certain point has a highlight reel. And if I played that highlight reel, they'd be like, man, who is that? Is that one of the all-time greats right there? Like, nah, that dude didn't even start on his own team. Like, you know what I mean? So that's where like the competing with, that's where that really started. Really, I've heard it like people mention like, oh, don't compete with yourself, but that's where that started really connecting with me. But go ahead, carry on, brother.
No, you're right. That's funny. He didn't start on his team.
highlight tape thinking he's an Olympian. You know what I mean?
Right.
MVP, like, no, that dude didn't make an all-star team. What are you talking about? Like,
Right. No accolades. He's just a regular player. He's an NPC on the game, not playable character. All right. Key takeaway number 3 is losing pushes you to improve. That was one of the things that you said, Tim. People are sometimes so hell-bent on not losing that they'll do anything to win. I mean, you get one of the biggest things, and it sucks because I didn't really follow this, but like Lance Armstrong, right? You win all these Tours de France, and all that is stripped away from you because you were cheating to win. And it's like, what would you have done if you lost, right? If you just would have lost like 1 or 2 of those and pushed yourself, you would have probably been competing at a high enough level to win. But because winning was so important, you just decide to take the easier way out of, I'm gonna go ahead and get this, this body stimulant to get my body stronger so that I can win, instead of allowing yourself to take that loss and be like, dang, I came in third that time. Okay, next time is first or second. Okay, I came in second that time. You know what's next is first, right? Be okay with competition to the point where you are allowing yourself to take the L. And I always say the L is not really the loss, the L is the lesson. Be able to take the lessons from your losses and push yourself to improve. So I really enjoyed that key takeaway. Key takeaway number 4 is victims are not very competitive. Going back to that whole pouting aspect, when we're in competition and, things don't go our way, I especially like in sports, man. There's been times in sports, even like last night, I was playing basketball, and this guy, he did something, and he had traveled, and I was like, travel, because you can't just walk 3 steps without dribbling the ball. And he was like, I didn't travel. Okay, your ball up top. And they're like, he traveled. I was like, I know he traveled. I know he traveled. You know he traveled. He clearly doesn't know that he traveled or can't accept that he traveled. No problem. Your guys' ball up top. And they're like, why are you giving him the ball? I made a bad call. I'm not going to be a victim about it. I'm not like, man, we should have the ball because you traveled. No, cool. You traveled. I know you traveled. I'm not even here to argue with you about it. I'm going to just beat you now. Now I'm just going to beat you. Now you're just going to lose. And what happened? His team lost. And
take 4 steps. Take 4 steps from now on. I'll give you an extra step.
LeBron it from the half court all the way to the fucking baseline. I don't care. I'm going to win this game now. And that's what we did. It was like, I can either be the victim and get so caught up, still play 6, play 7, play 8, play 9. Man, he traveled. Or I can just say, nah, my bad. I made a bad call. Just your ball top.
You ever see that meme of or that GIF that shows the person sitting back and them sitting forward when they get serious? You ever see that little thing? So you were sitting back, just having a nice exercise. I'm gonna get some blood pumping, play a nice little game, friendly game of pickup. Soon as that happened, okay. So this is all right. Take 4 steps. You could have 5.
Yeah.
You don't
even have to bounce the ball.
There's a Euro step. Hell, you could have a Euro step and a South American step. Go ahead, take them both. And your regular American too. Step. Right. And so but that's the competitive nature in you. That's healthy. I want to try to overcome the odds. Like, I'll let you get away from some stuff. Because it pushes you to work a little bit harder. But I'll let you continue with the takeaways.
Yeah, when the deck is stacked, I like that because it's like, ooh, so now when I win, it's gonna feel that much better.
Feels so much better.
You tried to cheat and you still lost. Yeah, it's gonna feel good to me. I appreciate that opportunity. Key takeaway number 5. Ooh, yeah. Ooh. Yeah, okay, I guess. Always assess the cost of competition. That was something that Art said when he was sharing. He was saying, I always look at what it's going to cost me. And you said that the opportunity cost. I always look at what is it going to cost me to compete. Like, Is it going to injure me? Is it going to injure relationships? Is it going to injure my family? Is it going to injure my finances? Like, always take a moment to assess what it's going to cost, because sometimes we get so caught up in competition. And I had to deal with this going to court with my ex regarding custody for our kids. It was like I had to get to a space where I said that competition is not worth it for me. It's going to end up costing not only is it going to cost a lot financially for me, it's going to cost me the relationship with my children, and it's going to create a toxic relationship, a toxic co-parenting relationship with their mother. And I didn't want that. And so in that competition, I had to concede and say, you know what? Here's the new rules and the new boundaries that we play within, but I'm not interested in making this about me winning, because if I win at the expense of our children losing, that's not a win for me, and I'm able to understand that. So always assess the cost of competition. And then to follow that, takeaway number 6 is to know your deal breakers. Know who you are, know what you stand for, know what are your non-negotiables, and stand on those things. So that trifecta for me is what I consider principles. Being a principled man, right? Being somebody who says, this is what I stand on. This is my square, and I'm standing on it. And well, I got off of it because of this, or I would have still stood on it, but I didn't because of that. It's just these are my principles, and I'm not willing to forego them to get any kind of win. So know your deal breakers and know when you can just simply concede and say, I'm not going to compete. I'm not willing to compete. Key takeaway number 7 is learn how to forgive your losses. I love that you brought forgiveness into the competition, because sometimes we get so hell-bent on beating ourselves up when we lose in a competition. Oh, that was stupid. I should have did this. We just we go into this negative tailspin that we can't really pull ourselves out of. And if we could just in a moment offer ourselves some grace and say, dang, man, you almost had that, or you didn't get that one because you did this thing, but here's how we're going to improve that the next time. You'll begin to forgive your losses, and you'll be able to bring back more gems and less freaking rocks with you in that loss. So that's takeaway number 7. And the last takeaway that I have is take time to do the after action review. I love that concept of the after action review. It's actually in Call of Duty, they have an after action review. But take time to reflect whether you win or lose. Like, this is how you remain competitive if you're winning, and you become more competitive if you're losing, is take time to reflect on what you did right, what you can improve on, what you can get better at, and honestly, sometimes what you can get rid of. Like, sometimes in our wins, think about it. If you're winning and you're like a poor sport, you're like, yeah, that's why I beat you, and I'm about to go to your mama's house after this, or something stupid. You can get rid of that, and that can make you a stronger competitor. That can actually put some people on your side and be like, man, I really like the humility that they have when they win, or I like how they're competitive and they're willing to go after it and get it. But at the end of the day, they understand this competition is a singular event in a singular moment, and it doesn't define who they are as a human or as an individual. So take time to do that after action review and really find out how you can continue to improve upon you outside of the people that you're competing with, how you can continue to improve upon you. So that's everything that I got this evening. We're a little bit over. Sorry about that, brother, but we had a bunch of ways. I really appreciate you being on tonight. I'm actually kind of glad we're jumping off a little early, because my voice has been in and out for like the past couple of weeks. So the next time that you will see us live on the first row will be in 14 days, so the 28th of May. Is it the 28th of May, or is it the 29th?
28th.
28th? Okay. 28th of May, yeah, because it's Tuesday. The 28th of May, and it'll be our last men's circle for this season. and then we will pick back up at the next season at the beginning of July, I believe. So, well, not the beginning because the 4th of July is in there. So, probably the second week of July, we'll pick back up. But other than that, as always, if you like this video, share it. If you share this video, please like it. Always happy to engage with you in the comments. If you're watching in the live section, always happy to engage with you in the chat. But until the next time, one love, peace, and God bless. Thank you for sitting on the first row. Salud.